Fantasy Rap
with Austin and Ozzy.
Oh, I just love those boys.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Rap, and I'm your host Ozzy.
And I'm your co-host Austin.
You can find us on fantasyrap.com. That is fantasywrap.com. Hi everybody, welcome to week 3 of the fantasy football season. We've got something special, something new. Pete's Picks, however you want to say it, which is Austin's daughter.
Yep.
My granddaughter, and we will have her on, and she will appear and choose the team that we're going to talk about.
Yep.
Hey everybody, welcome to P's Picks. Sutton, Austin and Brittany's child is going to, not baby anymore, child and my granddaughter is going to select who we are going to talk about from the Thursday night football game. So, we've got a couple of pieces of paper here that have New York and San Fran on them. Sutton, who should we talk about? You choose one.
You gonna pick one? You do the Giants or the 49ers?
Can you pick one of them? Can you pick one?
No.
Not the phone. Can you pick one of these? Which one should we talk about? Go ahead, choose one.
You being shy? Show the Giants?
Okay.
Okay.
We'll do the Giants.
No. You're not sure? Giants?
Okay, we'll do the Giants. Hi everybody. So you saw who P picked. She decided that we were going to talk about the New York Giants in our Thursday night football recap.
Yep.
So, it was a bad game for the Giants.
I've had a rough start to the season.
Yeah, I mean they looked really bad. I mean they had maybe 150, 160 yards in offense.
Yeah. It's really bad.
Yeah. Daniel Jones was 22 of 32 for 137 yards and an interception. Rushed it 2 times for 5 yards. Matt Breida was 3 targets, 3 catches for 1 yard. 4 rushes, 17 yards and a touchdown. So at least he got into the end zone. But if you played him...
4 attempts on the ground is...
Yeah.
Granted, I know it's San Francisco, but that's...
Yeah, it would have been different if Barkley was playing.
Well, of course,
a big time.
Yeah.
And the score might have reflected it. And, I mean, it started out fairly even.
Mm-hmm.
Field goal apiece. Neither team moved the ball extremely well, but they both marched down the field and kicked a field goal.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, because I said I had Purdy and Daniel Jones, and I had to choose between them, and I was leaning toward Daniel Jones. I went with Purdy.
Yeah, smart. Yeah, good choice.
So it worked out for me.
Yeah.
I just, I figured if one screen pass to CMC turns into a touchdown, that's huge for me.
Oh, yeah.
So I took a chance.
Yep.
Then they had Slayton, who was 3 catches on 6 targets for 32 yards. They had Campbell, who had 6 targets, caught all 6 of them for 24 yards. And they had Darren Waller, who had 7 targets, only caught 3 of them, and only had 20 yards.
That's
up
ugly.
That's
up
really
and down. Disappointing for Waller too.
Yeah, I mean, up and down the lineup, there were no standouts. The defense played well in the first half.
Yep.
They seemed to really be frustrating Purdy for a while, but an offense like this, it was offensive, all right.
Yep.
I feel badly for anyone who had to play. I mean, in my deep league, I believe Breida was probably played.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones wasn't. I don't know that any of their receivers are actually rostered.
Highly. I mean, maybe just like true flyers on like Jalen Hyatt, who's got a bunch of speed, Wan'Dale Robinson came back, or
Yeah.
I think he played this week.
Yeah.
And, you know,
But
had a
again,
couple
they were-
targets, but
yeah.
not a lot of yardage.
Right.
There's just
Their
nice
numbers
seeing
were
him out
actually
there.
smaller based
Yeah.
on targets and yards. I didn't,
Yep.
I mean, I could have put just about anybody in, and the stats are about the same for everybody. Not good.
Yep.
I mean, your biggest point getter outside of your quarterback was was Breda with 7.8 points, which is not horrible, but it's certainly not what you would expect out of your running back.
Especially if he was your replacement for Saquon.
Right.
So.
But
it
at
was
least he got that touchdown, or it would have been 1.8
Yeah,
points.
he fought
So,
for that touchdown too, pretty hard. They
Yeah.
had to push the pile to get him into the end zone. And
Yep.
yeah, but like I said, the only 4 carries, on the ground is confusing. I mean, like we said, if Saquon was there, it would have been different. But that's just, you only let somebody run the ball 4 times, and then plus even Daniel Jones only had the 2 rushes. Like I had said on, it would have been on Monday when we recorded,
Tuesday night.
or Tuesday night. Yeah, was Tuesday night. Was I had that kind of weird feeling that it was going to be one of those Daniel Jones like
Run
10
fest.
rushes for like 80 yards and maybe a touchdown, and obviously I was completely off with that. But you don't make a defense think at all that it's going to be anything other than a pass, and
Right.
they aren't good at that right now either. So,
Right. And then,
yeah.
I mean, they took the sack that took him down to like the 1.5 yard line.
Yeah,
and-
why was that not a safety?
because he was in the field of play when the guy made contact with him going backwards. So
Okay.
as long as he gets his forward progress.
Oh, okay.
So his forward progress was out at the 1.5,
Yeah.
2 yard line, and then he got
Yep,
tackled backwards.
Because watching it was fast enough that it was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, that might, but okay,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense.
They give him from the spot that they were
Yeah.
first
Okay.
contacted. So next we move to our pick of the week, and the top 6 quarterbacks outside of anyone who played last night are Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Kirk Cousins, Tua. Won't even bother trying to say the last name. Tagovailoa. Yeah. And Josh Allen. So I went with Jalen Hurts. Playing at Tampa. What's not to like about Hurts? I mean, Tampa's defense has been fairly decent, but Hurts, can run it, can throw it.
1 yard tush pushes in
Right,
the end zone.
Right. I mean, he could score a couple of touchdowns on those. So I like the upside of him here. So if you've got him, I can't see anyone not playing him.
Of course.
Unless you've got one of the other guys ahead of him, and I would still be picky. I would probably start him over half of those guys, other than maybe Cousins, maybe Josh Allen.
And I would even Tua. I mean, going against Denver, it sounds like Waddle's probably not going to play because he's still dealing with a concussion.
I can't deal with
So,
that. I need him to play.
Taking one of those, like we said, taking one of those guys out, especially for a defense where you have, Surtain, who can,
Lock someone down.
you're never going to lock down Tyreek, but if you can limit him to under 100 yards receiving and no touchdown, that's a pretty good job by
That's a win.
defense. So,
That's a win.
yeah. So, and Hurts, I think Tampa Bay is going to keep that game pretty close. Mayfield's been playing good. Obviously, Mike Evans has been, at least for me, when I got him in the 7th round, crazy good draft day value so far.
Yeah.
Like probably the best so far. Because you look at a guy like in the running back column, like Kyron Williams. Either he was like last pick on somebody's roster or went undrafted in a lot of fantasy drafts. So I really wouldn't count that, I guess, towards like a true draft day value. But
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how Baker does with a team that can actually put pressure on the quarterback. I think he's only been sacked 1 time in these 2 weeks. And, you kind of saw back in Cleveland, when he gets some pressure, obviously he starts running and trying to improvise and do all that, which kind of led to his downfall there in Cleveland.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how he responds to that. I think this will actually probably end up being a pretty decent game because the Eagles have some injuries on the defense and in the defensive backfield. So
Right.
Could be, like I said, could be interesting.
Yep.
My pick is going to be Matt Stafford against Cincy. That's a Monday night game. Is the Eagles-Bucks a Monday night too? Because they're doing another doubleheader. But I
It
can't
very
remember
well
what
could
it
be. I
was.
don't remember.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, there are two Monday night games this week.
So kind of a homer pick because I have Joe Burrow on my main redraft, on my main team, and then I actually picked up Stafford because Burrow was limited or didn't practice, kind of weird stuff. He might not go Monday night. And even if he goes, if he's 50%, I don't know. It's kind of tough. I might just put in Stafford. Stafford's been kind of pedestrian, not a lot of touchdowns, but a lot of yardage because of Puka and Tutu Atwell. I think this is one that the Rams are going to want to win, so I think they're going to let him really go up, actually sling the ball.
Cincinnati's defense hasn't been great. It hasn't been horrible, but I mean, Stafford is a good quarterback.
Yep. Yeah. Might not pad fantasy wise. In the last 2 seasons, obviously he was dealing with the elbow thing last year, and then not having Cooper Kupp. But again, another game that could be a very good game. For fantasy players. So that's who I'm going with.
Agreed. So then we go to running backs, and obviously CMC was one, but we don't count him because he played last night. Pollard, an interesting one. Kieran Williams, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Bijan Robinson, and Josh Jacobs. So I decided to go with Travis Etienne.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean they're playing against Houston. Houston has notoriously been good at giving up a lot of points to running backs. I wasn't overly impressed with the quarterback play last week out of the Jags, nor the receivers.
Yeah.
So, I think that Etienne may be... Now, they played against KC last week, and I'll say it again. I think KC's defense is actually much better than what it was the first 2/3 or 3/4 of last year, which was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was because they always knew that they could ride Mahomes and they were going to win, or what have you. But they've actually turned it up a notch and are playing some good defense. So Etienne, all of the Jags last week didn't perform that well. So I think Etienne is going to have a big game.
Yep, yeah, I agree. I like the pick. I do believe Zay Jones, one of the receivers, is going to be out. It's been ruled out. I want to say it's Zay Jones.
I think you are correct.
So boost for Calvin Ridley, should have a decent, hopefully a good bounce back. The thing with Houston is, like last year, it was always kind of a trap matchup. You play your quarterback, and you're like, I'm going to get 50 points. Like Jalen Hurts last year, I believe they played Houston, and he had he still had 17 points or
But
something.
they were all in the first half.
But it wasn't, the 30-point game you would expect, because same thing, they run the score up. Houston just can't keep up with the passing defense. So then the running backs always do really good against Houston. So, and Etienne had some cramps last week that he was kind of in and out with. So should be all good, ready to go. I think the Jags are going to try and use this as a bounce back after kind of a subpar performance last week against KC.
Agreed.
So I'm going with Kenneth Walker against Carolina. 2 touchdowns last week. He was under 100 yards, but I think that was on 14 or 15 carries. So not a ton of usage, but decently efficient.
They couldn't use him that much last week. I mean, they were playing from behind.
Yep.
Well, they were playing from ahead early.
Yeah.
Then playing from behind, so it became a game of we got to throw the ball.
Yep.
And that's what it ended up being.
Yeah, and Charbonnet is a very good compliment back, but he hasn't really been that involved yet. I see him sitting out on waivers and people do I drop Charbonnet for X player or whatever? So I think
Tough decisions.
Yeah, so
especially when Ken Walker is getting the majority of the looks.
Yeah, and if Kenneth Walker gets banged up, Charbonnet immediately becomes the starter in a good offense with a load of opportunity. But I like the matchup against Carolina. It could be an interesting matchup because it sounds like Bryce Young might not play.
Right.
I think he's trending towards out, which means that will be the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton. So
Yep.
I think that gives a good uptick in potential for your Carolina receivers. And by Carolina receivers, I mean Adam Thielen, and could see maybe a big, long, nice completion or a couple deep shots to Jonathan Mingo. Obviously, they're not really letting Bryce Young try and stretch the field like that yet. So it could end up being a good game, and if they're in it, or if they get ahead, which is also very possible. I think Kenneth Walker's he should get north of 20 touches. So
yeah.
Unfortunately, probably a touchdown.
Fortunately, I've got both Jalen Waddle, who's probably out, and I've got Thielen, who, if he gets the chance with Big Red, then maybe it's a decent replacement.
Yeah,
we'll have to see.
He had a touchdown last week. Thielen did.
Oh yeah,
it was at the end, but
he had like 9 or 10 targets.
Yeah,
he was
like 70 something yards and a touchdown. Yeah. So pretty good usage. And like I said, you get somebody who can put a little more oomph on it, on the ball, get Thielen downfield a little bit. Could translate into a nice week for Adam Thielen.
I'm hoping. So we look at the wide receivers, and obviously the guy who's been first pretty much all year, if not all year, Justin Jefferson, followed by Tyreek, Davante Adams, which kind of surprises me since they're having trouble getting in the ball, Keenan Allen, Pickens, and Calvin Ridley.
Yep.
So I went with CeeDee Lamb at Arizona. Dallas has been very good. Unfortunately, they lost their star DB, Trevon Diggs, ACL, and he'll be out for the rest of the season. However, that just means that it could turn into a closer game. I don't see Arizona.
They went from 10-point favorites to 9.5 point favorites.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, more like 15 down to 12 or something. So I think that CeeDee Lamb is going to have a big week. I see you've chosen someone that. That's defense. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So Lamb, I like it. He had a bunch of targets, a lot of yards. And efficient with the targets. A lot of catches plus the yardage. So obviously PPR last week, CeeDee Lamb was
money.
Was amazing. The only thing that I think that could happen from keeping him out is Pollard goes off for 2 touchdowns in the first half, and Dak throws one to Ferguson, like a random one, and they get up big right away, and then Pollard just goes nuts with yardage. That's the only
entirely, or even they work in a second or third string back to get him some exercise.
Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah.
the little guy out there. So, so I'm going with Stephon Diggs against Washington. Washington's defense has been okay, probably slightly above average. And Buffalo's defense really hasn't been anything to brag about this year either. Some trouble putting away teams that they probably should. Obviously, that's offset with when you have Josh Allen as your quarterback.
Right.
So I think Washington keeps this one decently close, which will force the Bills to press a little more. Hopefully see a little more red zone usage with James Cook this week too. But it'd be nice to get a Diggs touchdown, especially since Allen threw a touchdown to everybody else except Stephon Diggs last week. So hopefully a little. I won't say get right game for Diggs because he's still going to get 16 PPR points no matter what it seems like, but hoping for that 20 plus point this week. So yeah, I mean he's a good receiver, one of the best in the league.
Yeah, I haven't. You said Washington has a decent defense.
Yeah.
Remember they played Arizona the first week.
I know.
I'm not sold on their defense.
Yep.
But who knows?
Go back to Tampa Bay. Like I said, everybody's like, "Oh, Tampa Bay is surprising everybody." Well, you look who they've the defenses won
Right.
Minnesota, and then I can't remember who they played week 1, but Minnesota's defense, like we said, is terrible, and then whoever they played week 1.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either, but kind of the same with Washington, I guess too. You go against a couple bad offenses, obviously makes you look good.
Right,
so.
right. Moving on to the tight ends, we've got Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, Taysom Hill, Ingram, and Pitts. And I outside of Pitts, because Pitts, while he. And pretty much every week we talk about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the talent.
Yeah.
He just never sees any targets. I think he saw one target and 8 yards or something last week.
Yeah, he's getting dropped left and right. Dynasty, you can't.
Yeah,
you can't even trade him because you're not going to get his true value.
Oh no,
for what he can.
But he could come back, which is why I've got him in the league that you and I are in.
Yep.
And there's no way I'm doing anything with him right now. I'll hold on to him and
you hope
completely lose out if I have to.
Somehow there's a revelation at the QB position, and or if that means he goes somewhere else. I don't
Right.
I don't know how much longer he's going to be in Atlanta.
Well, this is his 3rd year,
so 2 more years, 1 year maybe.
first round pick. I think it was a first round pick. So
yeah.
they may not pick up his 5th year option because they're not getting any usage out of him because of themselves.
Yeah.
So then my pick for the week is Dallas Goedert.
I'm
stacking.
Second week in a row. You feeling all right?
I'm not. I think I'm running a fever.
It's a little warm in here, but
yeah, it is warm in here. I just like the opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going with Hurts as my quarterback, I might as well go with one of his receivers. And I like Dallas Goedert here. While he hasn't been utilized the way fantasy owners would like him to be, I think that'll start to change.
Yep.
I mean, the guy's an excellent tight end.
Yeah, like I said too, I think this game's actually going to be pretty close. Hopefully high scoring for obviously just for fantasy wise.
Right.
That's what we're here talking about. That's what you want to see. So yeah, I think Goddard. A defense like Tampa, you're going to be worried about Davante Smith and AJ Brown deep. That could leave that middle tier of the field open for Goddard. We'll see how much Hurts runs or how Swift does, or if they're gonna try and work Penny in more this week.
Gainwell might be back.
Yeah, so I think.
And then the question is where does Penny fit into that?
Yes, yeah, which they might end up having if Swift stays healthy and plays like he has been, and Gainwell plays like he did week 1. They might have to just ship Penny out and say, well, thanks.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily make sense unless you're worried about. I mean, Gainwell has already been hurt, and Swift rarely makes it through a season.
Love Boston Scott, so they got him there too.
They've got 4 running backs,
and somebody who in the right system and healthy with Penny. We saw what he can do. That last half of the season in Seattle.
Again, if he's healthy.
Yes, that's the thing. I mean, if you're not going to use him and let him do that. Then
especially after we saw the Kareem Hunt get signed by Cleveland and Akers being traded to Minnesota. Those openings for jobs are kind of going away.
Still got Leonard Fournette floating out there too. That'd be interesting. But yeah, if Tampa Bay keeps it close, I think this will be a really good, for fantasy-wise, matchup. So I like trying to grab a piece out of that. I'm hoping for the breakout this week for Sam Laporta. Amon-Ra's got turf toe. He's not going to be as explosive, and Amon-Ra's more of a...
Have they said if he's playing?
It sounds like it.
Okay.
And I think Amon-Ra's the kind of guy that even if he's 60%, he's gonna go.
Oh, I'm sure he wants
know,
to. It's a question of, with turf toe, it's that pushing off.
Yep.
It's the explosiveness, and if he can't gain separation from the defender,
Yeah.
I mean, he's got great hands.
Mm-hmm.
I love Laporta here.
Yeah.
I think he was 5 catches on 5 targets this past week.
That's what he was like week 1 too.
Yeah, I
he's
mean,
just been so far very consistent.
Right. I mean, if he continues to play that way, the yards are going to come.
Mm-hmm.
And depending upon what format you're playing in, excellent play.
Yeah. I think he's out of the tight ends drafted this year. I mean, obviously we like Musgrave because we're Packers fans, and he's got a lot of potential as well. But I think Laporta, coming out of, again, another Iowa tight end, has that athletic profile to be one of these guys. I think with them trading Hawkinson last year, you saw, was it Shane Zylstra had a 3-touchdown game last season.
Yep.
I mean, Hawkinson every now and then had these monster games, so it can happen, for a Detroit tight end. And, this week against Atlanta, this could be another game, especially if Amon-Ra is more of a decoy.
Right.
Josh Reynolds is dealing with like a groin kind of thing going on. He got Montgomery's doubtful. So it could be a nice game for Gibbs receiving wise. I mean, he had 9 targets last week, but I think they're going to try, I hope that they try and get Laporta out here and really see and showcase what he can be.
Yeah. So let's move on to our love 'em, flip 'em, leave 'em segment. And I tried to make it so all 3 of these guys, they're wide receivers. All 3 of them have about the same number of points so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
And with the service that I use, it has them all ranked one right after the other.
Yep.
And so it's our choice or our job to decide if you had to choose between these, what would it be? So it's Davante Adams, it's Calvin Ridley, and it's Chris Olave. And, the tough thing is I almost want to, and I don't know the value of any of these, if there's more value out of one versus another. Right now, if at all possible, I would try and trade Davante.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm leaning as well.
And the reason is that Garoppolo just does not get the ball down the field.
Yeah.
I said it last or the middle of summertime, I think it was, that Carr was like top 5 in that, and Garoppolo was 25th or so. So if you can't get the ball down the field, now Davante can run any route, and can catch just about any ball, but he hasn't done much yet, and I don't like the quarterback that he's paired with. So that's my reasoning for it.
Yeah, like I said, that's the way I lean to, with the trade. What makes it difficult but would make it easy to trade is the name.
Right.
You're sitting there thinking, this is Davante F. Adams.
Yeah.
I can't trade him. He's, one of the best receivers in the league, arguably top 3.
But he hasn't been putting up top 3 numbers.
Exactly. You look at the offense situation right now. I mean, Jacobs hasn't done anything. Teams are going to be keying on the receivers until Jacobs decides to show up.
Which may be after this week, like he did last year.
Yeah, could be. He's got, like last year, Davante really didn't have, minus like Mac Hollins in a couple games, didn't really have a whole lot of competition for those deep targets, or as many targets. And now you got Jacoby Myers, who I would assume he's probably back this week. I guess I just don't know.
I'm not sure.
And
the funny thing is that, a year ago, who was the big name there? Renfrow.
Yeah, and he hasn't been anything for the last 3 seasons almost.
He's almost there. He's behind all of these guys now. When they had such high hopes for him. So in my mind, I would probably try and flip Davante.
Yep.
The other 2 are tough. I like Olave. I like the offense that he's in, And I think once Kamara is back,
Yeah, one more week without
that's
him.
going to change.
Oh yeah.
Those numbers are good because right now, I mean, Jamal Williams, like we said last week, Jamal Williams is not
He's not the true. He's not a workhorse. He's not the one.
right.
Yeah.
Right. He's not your 1A.
Yep.
I mean, if you've got two, yes, he's a goal line back. He brings some spark. You know, he can run. He can bust off a 12, 15-yard run. But if he's doing it as the lead back, he just doesn't seem to accomplish
I
that.
feel like Jamal Williams is more of a locker room glue kind of guy for a line. You know, I mean, obviously he can have those huge games. You know, like we saw in Detroit, 5 carries for 15 yards and 2 touchdowns or something crazy. But you know, I mean,
But again, it's not huge
to run
numbers.
an offense through him is just
Right.
You know, he just hasn't been able to do it even going back to Green Bay. You know, so
And
Yeah.
you know, you look at Ridley. Ridley's got Christian Kirk to deal with. He's got Travis Etienne,
Zay Jones, who
Zay Jones.
he's like the perfect if you need a plug and play receiver, you go.
I mean,
Zay
Christian
Jones.
Kirk had a huge game
Last week he had like 14 targets and like 11 catches for over 100 yards or something
So,
like that.
so because of that, I think that I would keep Olave
Mhm.
and I would drop Ridley. You know, it.
So that's just it's
And
is a
that's why
tough
that's
one.
why I tried to do it
Yeah,
that way.
I know.
I mean,
Yeah.
you've got 3 studs.
Yeah.
I mean, these are 3 of the top 10 to 15 wide receivers,
Yep.
and they're not playing like top 10 to 15 receivers. So I wanted,
Yeah.
you know, it's the same thing I did on in week 1 where I took Pacheco, Edwards-Helaire, and McKinnon.
Yeah.
All of them are from the same team. All of them, in my mind, are about the same value
Yep.
because they're part of a 3-headed monster.
Yeah.
These guys aren't on the same team. However, they're all projected to have the same number of points or thereabouts, and they've already had the same number of points
Yeah.
within 2.
Yep. So what's kind of interesting, I was kind of thinking just now, even if you were to look at it, if you look at it like standard scoring or PPR, you know, like we said, trade Davante, drop Ridley, keep Olave. It's the same for me if you were to look at Dynasty. Because Olave's got the youth, he's got the huge future ahead.
Oh, yeah.
If you trade Davante, again, name recognition, you should be able to get tons of value back, and then
And he's the oldest by far.
exactly. Too.
And
I
you
mean,
don't want him on your
how
team.
How much time does he have left
Right.
in a dynasty setting? You know,
Exactly.
like that, where Olave's second year in and is probably over the next 5 years going to emerge as one of the top. Arguably, could be already in the top 7 receivers.
Right. I was
you
gonna
know,
say
but
5
could-
to 7.
Yeah, but could jump up into that top 5 here in the next 3. You know, even next year potentially.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
So, yeah.
And like I
it's
said, I mean,
yeah.
having Carr,
Mhm.
and when Kamara comes back,
Yep.
you just I think the number of targets and the ability to be more open is going to be better.
Yeah, well, he gets so many air yards too. I mean, he's getting these deep shots, and that's
Right.
what we saw with Derek Carr last year
Yep.
with Davante.
Right.
You know, gets those deep shots, and you know, you connect on one of those. There's your whole week, basically. You know, your one big score for your team.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep, agreed. So that's all we've got for this week. We may be starting something new next week, a new segment that if we do, we'll let you know about it next week. Otherwise, we hope that you take the time to either view our video cast, give us some feedback, other than poaching players necessarily, which if you have to, you do it.
Yep.
Or
Like I
listen.
said, strike hard, strike first.
Yep. Otherwise, listen to our podcast. I hope you give us some feedback. Give us a loser or two from your league, from whatever you see, and we'll try and get it on the air.
Yep.
So, otherwise, I am Ozzy.
And I'm Austin.
Have a great week.
See ya.